You belong here. This is the kind of environment that we want to build. And there's a reason that I'm bringing you this simple message, and I'm going to get to the strategic and the specific part in a second. There's a reason I'm bringing this to you on the first Sunday of Advent as we're celebrating Christmas together. When my family first came to Princeton Church more than 5 years ago now, I came as the Connections pastor. We now have an infinitely better Connections pastor in Mitchell McLam. He has taken that role on, but that was the first job that I had, the first role that I filled here at the church. And so one of the things that I was responsible for was taking new people to the church. Maybe they'd been Christians forever, but new people to the church, walking them through the process of joining a small group, of joining a serve team of some kind, making sure they understood what salvation even means, and then, of course, trying to get them to become members of the church. And it's incredible how often, as we were having conversations with new people here at the church, my wife and I, we would do this one Sunday class called Membership Matters. It was amazing how often we heard this one word over and over and over and over and over and over. We heard people use the word home. They would say things like, when I first came to Princeton Church, I just felt like I was home. Or we visited dozens of other churches around the area, but we kept coming back here because this place just feels like home. What they were trying to say is, I feel like I belong here. I feel like this is the kind of place that I want to be. But I'll be very transparent and honest with you. Pastor Matt has sort of set the tone in that way, hasn't he? Our staff is very transparent, very, very open, sometimes too much so. I'm going to be very transparent with you. The more we have grown as a church, the more difficult that has become. Because as we have more than 900 people that now regularly call this place their home every single weekend, it's challenging for people to feel that small, intimate feel again. And I want to show you something in just a second. And before I show you, it might come as a bit of a shock to you. I'm going to show you a photo from our database, our church database. And before I show you this, I just want you to know, by no means is this any way of being arrogant or braggadocious, except on God, because God keeps sending people our way, and we're just trying to figure out what to do with all these people. So in no way are we bragging, but I need you to see why it's become difficult for people to really feel like this is home and they belong here, okay? Take a look at this. 4,588 people that are within our database. Now, not all of them are regulars here. Some of them, in fact, some of you might be here today because you're visiting family for Thanksgiving. And so you come one time and maybe you fill out the Connect card and you end up within our database. And so some people are there for 6 months or 12 months, and then we remove them when we realize, oh, they've not come more than that one time. Or maybe you came and tried us out and then you left, or you got a new job somewhere else. So let's say 500 of those people aren't regular. Let's say 1,000 people there aren't regular. That's still 3,500 people that would consider Princeton Church their home church. And it's difficult to connect with all of those people. We have 15 staff members. Are you doing the math right now in your head? 15 staff members to, let's say, 3,500 different people. About a month ago, we got an email here at the church that was rather heartbreaking. It was this family, anonymous, by the way, did not tell us their name. That would have been wonderful. An anonymous email from this family telling us that they had come to Princeton Church, not once, not even twice, but I believe 4 times is what they said in the email. And in 4 attempts at coming to Princeton Church, they'd never felt like they were connected. They said, your church is friendly, people smile, they shake my hand, they say hello, but then that's it. It's very surface level, and we never really connected. They never really felt like they belonged. They never really felt like they had come home. And that was heartbreaking for us. Because here's the bottom line, and you know this. When I say this, you're going to intuitively, instinctively know it. All people long to belong. That's true 100% of the time, across the board. All people long to belong. Every single person in this place, every single person watching online, thank you for joining us. Everybody longs to belong. You long for environments where you're accepted and you feel like you're at home. My family entered a new season this last fall because our oldest went off to college. He's at NC State. When we talk to him, guess what we ask? We don't ask about his grades, although that's important. We don't ask, are you eating good, although that's important. We say, who are you hanging around with? Tell us about your roommate. Tell us about your suite mates. Tell us about the guys that you're meeting on Monday nights in the dorm Bible study. Like, we want to know who he's connecting with, because this is true 100% of the time. Every single person longs to belong. This is why you go to the same restaurants. You want to see the same servers. You know what's on the menu. Nothing's going to come as a shock and a surprise. It's why you go to the same barbers. It's why you go to the same grocery stores. This is why family is so crucial to kids as they're growing up, because they need an environment where they know no matter what they do, no matter who they are, what mistakes they make, they still belong. They're still at home. And this is why the idea of a larger church family is so beautiful when it works. But when it doesn't, like for the anonymous emailer, it's brutal. It's crushing, because you think you're going to this place where I'm going to belong here. They're going to accept me here. I'm going to find home and family here. And when you don't feel that, it's very disorienting, and you got to figure out, what in the world am I going to do with this? So here's the question as we're beginning. Do you want to be that kind of church where everybody who comes feels like they belong? Come on, this is a legitimate question. Do you want to be that kind of church? Yes, of course you do. You all acted like that was a rhetorical question, because everybody would be like, well, yeah, everybody wants that. Every person in our church would want us to be the kind of church where you belong here is almost like a mantra. It's almost like something that you don't even have to necessarily say, but I think sometimes we need to say it. So it's a simple message, but now I need to get a little bit more specific and a little bit more strategic with you. So if you have your Bibles, open up to John chapter 13, and let's see what God has to say. The Christmas is all about Jesus, right? Let's see what Jesus in particular has to say about this sense of belonging and this sense of home. John 13, while you're turning there, let me just give you a little bit of the surrounding context. This is the Last Supper. You're probably familiar with the painting of Jesus and the disciples at this long table. It probably didn't look hardly anything like that, but this is Jesus and his disciples having one last meal before he's arrested and then crucified. So Jesus is sharing the Last Supper like we just did, like Pastor Mitchell just led us in, sharing the bread and the drink together. And then after the meal, Jesus gets a basin of water and a towel, and on hands and knees starts doing the servant's job. In fact, if there are classes of servants, it's the lowest servant's job, because their feet were nasty. This is an ancient Middle Eastern town. There's no pavement. There's no concrete. They're walking dirt paths in sandals all day. Their feet are gross. So it's the lowest servant's jobs, and they're all aghast. Jesus, what are you doing? Then Jesus finishes washing their feet. He predicts his own betrayal. Judas is sitting around the table, and he predicts, one of you is going to betray me. Then he looks right at Judas and goes, man, just go. You can go. Go do what you think you need to do. And so Judas gets up and sort of sheepishly walks out. Everybody's looking around like, what in the world just happened? So I want you to understand that this is a sober moment for Jesus, probably a pain-filled moment for Jesus. John chapter 13, starting in verse 34. So now I'm giving you a new commandment. And they must have leaned in a little bit like, ooh, something new. That's exciting. A new commandment, says Jesus, love each other. To which they must have gone, new? Because if you didn't know, I like telling people this, if you didn't know, they had this memorized. These are good Jewish boys. By the time they reached the age of 13 at their bar mitzvah, they had memorized, not read, memorized. Can you imagine? Memorized the first 5 books, the Torah, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. So when Jesus says, new commandment, love one another, they must have gone, yeah, we got that, Jesus. We've known that from the time we could toddle around with our parents and speak our first words. We know what a big commandment love is, what a big deal is love is. And Jesus goes, no, that's not what I'm talking about. A new commandment I give you, love each other the way I loved you, just as I have loved you. That's how you should love each other. To which they probably went, oh. Because when's the last time you got down on your hands and knees and washed feet? When's the last time you looked at your betrayer who stabbed you in the back and then twisted the knife and said, I still love you. I know you did what you felt like you had to do. I still love you. I still forgive you. Because our love, come on, let's be honest, our love tends to be pretty self-serving and selfish. I'll be even more transparent with you. When I first got the anonymous email a month ago, I was kind of angry for an hour or so. I'm reading this email and thinking, what is this person expecting? Doesn't this person know we have 4,500 people in our database? Doesn't this person know that we have more than 900 people that show up every single Sunday? Doesn't this person know that we're doing all these things to try to reach as many people as we can? Of course, the answer is no, they didn't know any of that. But as I read and then reread and then reread the email, the anger sort of subsided and I began to empathize. Because it turns out that this family is military. They did not know that they were being transferred here. It was a quick, fast move. Their family's 800 miles away. I know that. My family's 2,500 miles away. I know what it's like to be approaching the holidays and go, well, I guess we'll start some new family traditions because nobody's around. I know what it's like to walk into a new church building, desperately scanning for a familiar face or even a kind face. And if you don't see one, feeling a bit crushed and feeling a bit desperate, like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I think maybe we need to get out of here. Like, I know what that feels like. So I can understand why Jesus would have called this a new commandment. And then Jesus makes a profound statement in verse 35. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. The way that you treat one another, the way that you love other people will prove, this is the proof. It has nothing to do with your voting record, dear Lord, help us. It has nothing to do with how many small groups you are a part of, how many teams you serve on at church. It doesn't matter that you've not missed one Sunday in a whole year. None of that matters. The way you love one another is the proof that you are one of Jesus' disciples. And I think you could also say that the opposite is true. By the way, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is what you might call indifference or apathy. Your indifference for one another will prove to the world that you're just another one of the world. Everybody loves like that. Everybody's kind to those who are kind to them. Everybody would give to somebody who gave to them first. Everybody does that. But when you love one another like Jesus loved, that's a new commandment. And that is proof that you are one of Jesus's disciples.